first hate emails.
Let me, hang on. All right, you're golden.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Today's the 8th of July, 2024. Welcome out to Iron County Commission this morning. Just by matter of housekeeping, we'd like to excuse Commissioner Wood this morning. She has a family obligation that she's taking care of, so that's always more important than this. We'll start out this morning with a prayer and a pledge. We've asked Ryan Riddle if he would provide us with an invocation, and George Colson if he would lead us in the pledge.
Father in heaven, we're grateful today that we're able to convene and take care of business that's appropriate to the county. And Father, we ask you to please bless us that we'll be able to proceed with those business items, and that we'll be able to make the decisions necessary to lead the county in a positive direction. Father, we're grateful for this great country and the state, county that we live and work in, and ask you to protect it. Ask you to please bless it with the moisture that we need. Ask you to protect those residents and visitors of our county and keep them safe from elements. And Father, we're grateful for these opportunities and these privileges that we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please rise. Repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have got minutes for approval from the June 24th, 2024 meeting. Any discussion?
No, I'll move to approve the minutes. What date was that? I'm sorry.
June 24th.
June 24th.
I will second. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So those minutes are approved.
And I'll move to approve the claims. June 24th through July 7th.
I will second. So all in favor of the claims?
Aye.
Aye. So there's 3 spots to sign, John?
Yeah. One on the last bit and one in the middle there.
Oh, gotcha. All right, we'll move on to department reports this morning. We'll start out with the fair. Jamie, come on down.
Okay, here we go. We've had a lot of learning and growth to do this year. We've had 2 new office staff hired. One of them ended up moving in June, so I hired another one. And so they are learning, but it's been a little slower getting going, but they're getting right on the rope and doing what they need to do to help. And it's been fun to see them learn what we do at the fair. We also have integrated a new scheduling software and program this last year, which will help us streamline and plan the events. In the past, it's always been in somebody's head of what needs to happen, and nothing's ever been really wrote down. And so this program will allow us to put everything into it, and we'll be able to go to that to find our contacts and schedule and make sure we're not double booking things. So that'll be good. This year's a little harder to get through it and get it set up, but the following years we should be able just to transfer those events over each year, and this will help to alleviate a lot of those forgotten tasks that creep up on us at the end. The fairground upgrades this year, we put sod in front of the new grandstands, sections D, E, and F, and it looks really good. So now we have sod across all of those covered grandstands in front. Another thing is the facelift of the exhibit building. It looks really good. If you haven't been out there, drive out and see it. It looks amazing. The theme this year for the fair, we've chosen Treasure Your Memories. And so that's been kind of fun to build off of that. We've kind of gone more to a pirate theme. We have reached out to a grand marshal and offered them to be our grand marshal. They needed to talk to their spouse and family, and will get back to us this week on if they've accepted that or not. We held the Miss Rodeo contest in May, and we have a great court this year. Our queen is Haley Frey, and first attendant Cameron Brush, and princess is Adeline Wright, first attendant Cheyenne Stevens, and second attendant Ada Raybon. Junior princess is Aspen Ambrose, first attendant is Rosalind Hewlett, and second is Delilah Lozenheiser. The Miss Iron County pageant will be held August 10th. We have 5 queen contestants for that and 16 contestants. August 17th is the OHV and UTV excursion, the trail ride, and the demo derby. On the 24th, we've got a really full day that day. We've actually moved the Little Buckaroo Rodeo that used to be held on Thursday. We've moved that to Saturday to allow for more events and participants to be in that one. So that day we've got the Little Buckaroo, and then the arena turns into a team sorting competition, and we'll have the mud bog in the back. So this year we are trying to contact more mud bog people, and we're trying to get into a points race circuit. And so a lot of these people that are running the mud bog are coming down from Idaho to run in this bog. So hopefully that'll help with the circuit. And when they're in the circuit, there's so many races they're required to be in order to get the payout at the end of the year. So it'll kind of entice them to come. August 28th, we're doing the rope race and ride, roping. And then on that Thursday, the 29th, in place of the Little Buckaroo, we're starting a 4D barrel racing competition. So that'll fill the place of the Little Buckaroo on that Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday is the PRCA rodeo. We've got the dances, the carnival, and the entertainment. And then one new thing that we're doing this year on August 31st, Saturday night, is the Southern Utah Deaf and Hard of Hearing. They've contacted us and they want to attend the rodeo, so they will be attending. There's probably about 75 of them, and they'll have 2 interpreters in front that will interpret the rodeo for them. So that's kind of a fun thing that we haven't done, and they seem really excited when you talk to them, and excited that they can come to one of these events and be able to understand what's going on.
That's very cool. What time is Miss Iron County on the 10th?
I think it's at 6, but I will send you guys a
I'm putting it in the phone.
list of those so that you've got a list of what we're doing.
Can you email us a list of all this?
Yep,
That'd be
I'll do
great.
that.
Thank you.
Okay, we have been working really hard on sponsorships this year. We have all of them that I've got here are confirmed sponsors. There's only 4 that we've just received the applications on but haven't received payment for. So we have 10 new sponsors this year that have not been sponsors the previous year, and 8 sponsors that we had last year have increased their sponsorship. So right now our grand total of sponsorships are 68. We have 2 platinum, which are $5,000 and above. We have 11 gold, which are $3,000 above, 21 silver, which are $1,000 above, 18 bronze, $500 above, 10 copper, which is $300 above, and 6 iron, which is $100 above. So far, our sponsorship this year is $76,600, and our goal was $100,000. So I've got $23,400 left.
Wow.
To go. So, but I'm really excited because really all of them have confirmed. All but 4 of those confirmed have paid. So that's really good.
This is fantastic. Just got a text. The pageant starts at 7.
Oh, 7. Okay. Is that
Karen.
Karen. She is on it.
She is on it. Well, I got a text from Luke, who got a text from Karen.
Okay. Now what's he corrected me on? No.
Just at 7. That's all it
That's
said was
good.
pageant starts at 7.
Perfect. Okay. For vendors, she's Sharon, one of the new office staff. She's been working on the vendors and doing a really good job. There's 12 that we've got ready to come from Mudbog, 17 for the demo. The Midway, there's 66, so we're pretty much full with our food vendors, and so we're just looking for a couple more spots to fill for merchandise vendors. So the Ranch Rodeo series that we've had going on, we've decided to do 4 this year. So we've had 2 so far. One was on June 8th, one was on July 6th, and the next ones are August 3rd and the 31st. And the teams really seem to be enjoying it. They come and they do their thing. It takes 3-4 hours and they're out of here, but they seem to really enjoy it. So we also, on July 20th and August 10th, there's a Man Creek Bucking Bulls, WSBBA, that will come, and it's a bucking bull sale. So they have the 2 days that they're coming. The Color Country OHV, we have 14 registered riders so far. We'll really start pushing that at the end of the month. The biggest feedback we received last year was they wanted more camaraderie for the event. And so we're basing most of our rides out of the fair building. There's only a couple they actually have to trailer to this year. And they're able to choose from 5 different rides that day. We have increased the activities for the registrants to come. So we've got like an ice cream social the day that they register. We've got a cornhole tournament going on. They're going to do a night parade through town. And we've added a couple breakfasts. So hopefully that'll kind of help them to feel like they're a little more involved instead of just sending them out to trails. Also, that same weekend, 27th, 28th, 29th, is the Spanish Trails Rodeo. It's that series that they're doing in St. George, and then it was the Windy Wood Memorial. And so this one will be the Spanish Trail. It's that same weekend as the OHV Jamboree. And so they've actually offered 10% discount for any of the OHV Jamboree registrants that want to go to that. So anyways, we are just working hard on the fair and getting that going, and that's all I've got.
Oh, we appreciate you.
Okay. Well, thank you.
No, how are the volunteer numbers?
Pretty good. Yeah. They all seem happy, and
Good.
I told them they can't quit on me. So they seem good.
No, that's cool. You guys do such a good job with such small resources. As far as, like, you have no manpower, but you guys rock it.
We got a lot of awesome volunteers, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those guys are fantastic. I've noticed a lot of people with their like past year fair T-shirts on, just in the last little bit.
Well,
around town.
We went to Hawaii for Dallas's senior graduation, and we were sitting at we went to the Buddhist temple, sitting there, and I look up, and there's an Iron County 5K shirt. I said, "Really? From Parowan?" He said, "Yep." So, yeah, there we were.
Very cool.
T-shirts, so it's awesome to see them around.
Oh,
Okay.
that's great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Ryan with fire.
Morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I broke this out into training, prevention, fuels mitigation, and then I'll give an update on grants, some fire stats, and kind of go from there with questions and answers. Training from July 1st, 2023 to current. We've held several courses, basic and advanced courses for fire resources in the area, primarily providing that training to the local fire departments. Our numbers continue to dwindle. We're not seeing a lot of new people showing a lot of interest in especially being a volunteer, but we are still seeing pretty consistent numbers over the last few years. So I broke those out. You can look at those. Prevention burn permits for 2023 issued 64 permits between July 1st and December 31st, with a total private acres treated of 204. 2024, this spring, we had ample time for folks to burn. Conditions were actually really good. Issued 457 permits between January 1st and July 9th, which we did close that June 1st with a total private acres of 438. So that program is still continuing to be beneficial to private landowners to be able to burn and take care of those nuisance fuels. Community Wildfire Protection Plan, we're currently updating that for the county, as well as writing two of them, one for Meadow Lakes Estates, just east of Bryan Head, and one for the Harmony Ridge community down on Bumblebee. Continue to work with those communities that we've identified, the communities at risk, such as Cedar Highlands, Harmony Ridge, Old Irontown, and Red Canyon, planning and working with their homeowners associations and local governments to make sure they're prepared for wildfire and assisting with fuels mitigation in those areas. The prevention sign program, we installed an additional 10 permanent signs this year to help inform the public of burn permits, when burn permits are required, and or if we're in fire restrictions. We would like to think we're seeing some help with that, but our human-caused fires continue to be a little troublesome. We've got 4 electronic message boards that we put out throughout the county to help during fire restrictions, to notify people when we are on those restrictions. Those seem to be working well as well, and of course they can be used for other things if they're not being used for fire. For the first time, we actually used ours to do a cattle drive. We placed them out on Highway 143 to help with the road department with moving those animals, like we discussed in a few commission meetings. So they're getting used quite a bit for things other than just fire. So we continue to work with the clerk's office with those billings that go out, adding a fire prevention message to the back of those buildings. That saves, we're using prevention funds to pay for those, which is, I think it's a good thing. We're getting the information out and saving a little bit of money on the backside. So I appreciate the clerk's office being willing to help us out with that. And then working through IT to make sure our websites, social media, and other ads that are out there, make sure that people are getting the words about prevention education and what folks can be doing prepare for wildfire. Any questions with prevention or training? Pretty straightforward. Fuels mitigation, again, from July 1 last year to current, 170 acres of private land treated with prescribed fire. So these are primarily folks that have got large slash piles, especially in the higher elevations, where we can go in during the wintertime and burn them so we don't have a risk of having those escape. And then, of course, in the spring, we do go back in and check to make sure that they're secure so we don't have an accidental prescribed fire escape. The unincorporated subdivisions, we've supported with a chipper and pile burns. We do 2 large pile burns each year, one in Old Irontown and one in Canaryville, supporting their programs for fuels mitigation within their communities. And then we have a chipper that goes around to some of the other subdivisions, such as Cedar Highlands and some of those areas, to actually chip that material. We continue to support Public Works and the weed department with roadside mowing when we can. We're using the mower to get rid of a lot of that sage, smaller diameter materials, pushing that back and cleaning up our right-of-ways. We're seeing a significant reduction in our roadside starts associated with that mowing. And for the last several years, we've worked with UDOT, and UDOT's doing the same. So having those roads mitigated, that material mitigated along the side of the road is definitely helping us with reducing those roadside starts. Completed the 5-mile campground burn, the piles that were created in that campground last year. We're continuing our roadside mastication using the track hoe and the grinder. We've run into issues with archaeological clearances on whether we need it or not. So we're working through that. Archaeological clearances can be expensive, and they're really backlogged, so it's really slow. But yeah, we're working through that, trying to streamline that a little bit and identify areas that have already been ARC cleared so that we don't have to pay to have it done again. The aspen removal last year that we did up on Canary Mountain, that was a mess, to say the least. There was a lot of complaints associated with that. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to move forward with that. That was troublesome for us to try and deal with that aspen. The smaller diameter stuff wasn't too bad, but the large diameter stuff is hard to get rid of. So we'll have to work on a plan to move forward with that aspen removal up in those higher elevations. We treated 50 acres of private land in Little Creek with the masticator, and then we have plans to do additional mitigation work in Cedar Highlands, Shirts Canyon, and the Parowan Front. We did get funding. I'll talk a little bit more about it, but we did get funding for a project in the Bryan Head area that we'll be working on. Any questions with fuels mitigation? That masticator is awesome, works great in pinyon juniper, but the taller material, the aspen, that kind of stuff, is still requiring us to hand cut, and so there's a lot of labor involved in that. So it's slow when it's in that higher elevation, but the lower elevation stuff is awesome.
Will it grind it once you cut it? It'll grind it fine.
No.
Oh, it won't?
If we have to hand cut it, so last year we were hand cutting, and the material that we were felling, people were picking up and using for firewood. So that was actually great. It was material being utilized for good purpose. So up in the aspen, it's awesome for that. Like I say, down in the pinyon juniper, it'll just grind the whole tree. So, and the aspen, the smaller diameter material isn't too bad. It'll grind right through it. But the taller stuff is a little sketchy because you're having to literally reach up with the boom as high as you can and cut the top of the tree off. And as that falls, that can be a little bit dangerous. So we found that just cutting it with chainsaws was more efficient and safer than trying to use the machine. So
How high can it reach?
about 30 feet, depending on elevation and how far out you're having to reach and that sort of thing. But about 30 feet. So it's a wicked machine. It's a little scary to run. I hit a fence post last year with it, a steel fence post, and sucked it up, spit it out like nothing ever happened.
Oh, geez.
I can't imagine that thing getting a hold of a person. It's pretty crazy. Grants, we were somewhat successful last year with grants. We applied for $2.1 million, was awarded $1.2 million, and I've got the breakdown there. The one that I will point out, the CAT fire, the catastrophic wildfire project funding request, that was awarded, and we'll be working on a project north, and I put northwest, but it's actually, that's right, northwest of Bryan Head. So kind of in that Dry Lakes area. We'll be working on getting a project lined out in there to do some fuels mitigation in there. So got a lot going on with grants and projects. This year we weren't able to apply for FEMA. We're still waiting for the closure of the FEMA grant for the Burl fire engine. That engine has been ordered, but it's a 2-year wait, so we should see that next year. And then we'll be able to apply for FEMA again. And then the State Fire Assistance Grant, we were unsuccessful with that. So some of these grants are drying up, and the competition for them is getting harder and harder. So, but we keep trying. Fire stats, the next 2 pages have all of the fires broke out, but in a nutshell, from July 1st to current, we've had a total of 94 fires with 69.89 acres burned. The largest was last year on BLM ground at 37 acres. Cost breakout, just over $226,000 was paid by the federal agencies. The state paid just under $40,000, and the county's cost was zero on that. So last year, suppression costs in Iron County, $492.6. As far as our operating budget, we're on track this year. We're at 48.74%, which is where I'd want to be this time of year. And our conditions are extreme, and so we're having a real hard time catching fires. They're wanting to stand up and run away. Last year, of course, we had the moisture and things kind of mellowed out, but this year it's continuing to ramp up with nothing in sight. So it's a little concerning, especially if we see dry lightning. That's going to be a real test on us. So obviously the other counties around us are seeing large fires, and so that's taken a lot of resources. That can be good and bad. So if we have new starts, we can steal some of those resources oftentimes from those other fires. But biggest thing this year is prevention, trying to prevent those human-caused fires. So needs and issues, the fire building remains at the top of our list. Employee retention, both within the fire departments and within our department. The fire district study, I know we're still waiting to hear back on whether we were awarded any funding for that. And then just the ongoing continued support for the fuels mitigation, prevention, and preparedness programs. So appreciate the support from the commission and would entertain any further questions.
I was reading about the fire over in Marysville, talking to not former Commissioner Bushman about that. It's pretty scary, this threatening the water supply. And
Yeah,
where do you see that fire going?
into Marysville.
You think it's going to go right down into town?
I think it will, yeah. They've got some evacuations on the bench to the west of Marysville there.
Is there defensible space between the city and the...
There is a little bit. It comes down into some lighter fuels, which can be a benefit and a curse because the fire will move a little bit faster in that. But I anticipate it coming off of the forest boundary and down into the BLM and private lands down in that Beaver Creek.
Those are pretty rugged cliffs, right?
They are, yeah.
So will that slow it down a little bit? Or
Oftentimes that becomes a bigger problem because we can't get folks into it. And so we almost have to wait for it to come down into an area where we can deal with it. They've got what they used to have type 1, type 2 incident management teams. Now they're just called a complex incident management team. And that team is in place, and I know they've got a lot of resources going over, and obviously that's the number one priority, life safety and property preservation. So if the winds will hold off today, yesterday they beat it up really hard and was able to kind of keep it in check. So if they can get those resources and the winds are nice today, then I think they'll be able to keep it out of town. But definitely scary on that west bench. So yesterday we had a fire in Kane County out on the Scudampaw bench. The call came in about 1 o'clock, and by end of shift last night it ran 9,000 acres in pinyon juniper. So these things are standing up. We're hitting them with aircraft. Real aggressive initial attack, and they're running away from us. So it's just the drought, and we've got a lot of fuel on the ground that's left over from the last few years. This type of fire behavior is expected, and so it's not nothing new to us, but it's definitely concerning. So
I don't have any questions, but thank you for everything.
yeah, pleasure.
I mean, Ryan does a lot for us, not only in the county, but just in the fire community in general, and assists the law enforcement community with stuff. You rock. We appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate the support, and always happy to help wherever I can. So
During the last meeting, Bruce Anderson was talking about the kind of the cooperative nature between the departments, and I think you taking on the mowing has been a very valuable thing, and I know we all appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, we want to do everything we can to make it a safe place for people to live and recreate and visit. So happy to help out wherever we can and continue to support those other departments and agencies however we can. So appreciate the support from the commission, and I'm going to go do an investigation.
Good luck.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate
See
it.
you, Ryan. Thank you. Dennis, come on down. Tell us about the TV.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
How are you
Good.
Dennis Johnson. I take care of the television, try to keep the broadcast TV on the air. We have 7 sites, roughly 60 transmitters, 15 or so microwave transmitters, buildings, towers, generators, air conditioners. It all has to run to keep it working. So anyway, I think through this winter, it's run pretty smooth. I have got a lot of license renewals I've been working on again lately. I think we're on top of it. Getting the snowcat ready to go for another winter. There's always a little maintenance that builds up. I think we're on top of it. I don't know what else to tell you. Any questions? Anything I can do for you?
In your box. Oh, sorry, Paul.
Go ahead.
In your box downstairs, I think there's a bit of mail for you.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Probably see
check
that
in with those
once.
guys before you go.
I see that at least once a year, probably.
Whether or not you need it, right?
Yeah, okay.
How's Frisco Peak? Is it doing okay? It seems like last time we talked, you had some issues up there. Did you get all those resolved?
There was what type of issues?
Can't remember.
Oh, we've had some generator issues.
That was a
up there.
generator. That
It's-
was it.
This winter wasn't too bad a year ago. Well, winter access is hard out there. Some years are really bad, but I think we're on top of it all. I think it's all going smoothly. If that site goes down, it all goes down. So, yeah, that's priority.
Right.
No,
Anything I can do for you?
we appreciate you. You kind of just keep your head down and do your thing, and nobody complains because the TV's not working.
No news is good news with you, Dennis.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Try to run under the radar. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis. Commissioner Cousins.
All right. I don't have a lot, but we had a impact fee meeting with Reed Erickson on the 24th. We had I can't remember, Mike, do you remember the gentleman's name? I don't remember it, but
I don't remember his name.
came down and talked about impact fees and as we move forward, one of the biggest challenges we have, I think, in the county is with storm runoff as we see more and more development out in the valley, which is very flat. The challenge of steering water that used to just percolate in the ground and knowing where that might go and trying to protect properties. We had that meeting. The Central Iron County Water Conservancy District had their water festival at the park on the 29th. It's always a great activity for kids and adults to learn about water conservation and some of the things they're doing. They just do a fantastic job. It's, Paul Monroe, Tracy Feltner, and their staff, and Mandy. I appreciate them. I haven't checked for a while, but I know they had a kind of groundbreaking for the construction of they're doing a water park up to the Canyon Park. They're on the west side. They're doing a project where they're going to divert the irrigation channel through a little park so the kids can play. It'll kind of be our splash pad, but it won't cost us the money that the splash pad would, and that's something that Choice Builders has kind of taken over to oversee that construction. That's going to be nice for the community. And then we continue to work with Cedar City regarding water rights for the new jail, as well as reuse water issues with the wastewater treatment plant. And that's all I have, Commissioner.
Great.
Commissioner, is there anything I can help with that on the jail one?
Yeah, let's
You
get
waiting on
together.
there?
Let's get
Okay.
together because I'm still kind of waiting. We got the MOU from Paul Bittman that as far as the agreement there, but we're still I think we're still waiting on the fixture count and how many water rights we're going to have and what they're going to give us credit for from our old connections and all that. But yeah, let's get together. I'd appreciate that. That'd be good.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
I don't have a lot to report either. I actually was able to go on vacation week before last with my family. I haven't, with my daughter and my wife, we haven't been for a minute, so we were out of town most of that week. I attended the impact fee meeting as well. Was able to participate in the election audit this last Wednesday. Is that when it was, John? The lieutenant governor's office assigns about 100 different ballots to hand check the physical ballot versus the scanned in version, and then the vote count. We were 100% on those with no inaccuracies. The groundbreaking for the jail is scheduled for August 15th coming up. That's something that we're going to work on. There'll be a bit of a program. It's not going to be too big of a hullabaloo, but it's something that's, so many people have worked so hard for that to come to fruition. That'll be coming up on the August 15th, and there'll be more to come on that. That's it. Just met with a few people here and there and talked with different folks, employees, about different issues, but nothing earth-shaking. So it is 9:41. We'll go in recess until 10 o'clock. We'll come back hopefully right at 10. Technology will. Ready? All right, welcome back. We're on, again, we're here on Monday, the 8th of July, 2024. There's some folks here that weren't here for the 9 o'clock meeting, so we're going to excuse Commissioner Wood today. Commissioner Wood has a family commitment this morning. We'll move ahead. Agenda item number 1, our public comments. 3-minute time limit per speaker for public comment participants. Should not repeat others' comments. Only for items not on the agenda. No items related to the Commission's role as an appeal board. Comments should be directed to the Commission with no attacks on other folks' character. Any public comment this morning? Come on down. State your name for the record.
My name's Patty Truax. I live in Canaryville, an unincorporated area. And I just wanted to go over the code, the Utah Code for Municipal Services Fund, which it's Title 17, Chapter 34-1. Counties may provide municipal services, which I'm sure you know all this stuff, but I'm just reviewing it just to make a point. So the municipal type services that are acceptable: fire protection services, planning and zoning, traffic engineering, code enforcement, business licensing, building permits and inspections, waste and garbage collection and disposal, street lighting, animal services, and storm drains. So all these services can be funded in 3 different ways: levying a tax on taxable property, charging a service charge or fee to persons benefiting from the MS, providing funds to a municipal services district in accordance with Section 17B-2A-1109. So if we look at what the unincorporated property owners are now being taxed for, the ones that just are not even acceptable on this list are roads, new victims advocates, weed control, search and rescue, highway patrol, predator control in Parowan and Cedar Mountain only, recreational subsidy to Cedar, Enoch, and Parowan. All those are unacceptable and should be taken off the tax record for the unincorporated taxpayers. Now Burl Fire, Newcastle Fire, they should all be paid for out of a Special Fire District 17B Chapter 2A. They should be removed from the tax burden of the unincorporated landowners. So Burl Community Center, they should be charged a fee to use those facilities. It's not the responsibility of anyone in Iron County in Canaryville to be paying for Burl Community Center. Recreational subsidy for Cedar, Enoch, and Parowan should not be paid for by anybody else but those people who benefit from it. The debt service, that should be paid for by whomever the debt's for. Now, in the planning and zoning, if there's any zoning change or modification or a development proposal, that should all be paid for by the property owner involved and the developer, and it shouldn't be dispersed to all the property owners in the unincorporated areas. So remove that. The only thing that everybody benefits in the unincorporated areas is for code enforcement, and that should be paid for. So the only thing that's really acceptable on this list is the sheriff, which still isn't listed as a municipal type services, or the fire service. So I want all the other ones removed or modified or paid for out of the special districts, or by charging the users a fee to use them. And the taxpayers of the unincorporated residents should not be paying for most of these services. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, we'll move on to agenda item number 2, discussion and support for the residents and property owners for public safety and health services in the Hamilton-Fort Ranches area. Roger Mathewson is the one that requested this item. Is Mr. Mathewson here?
I don't see him here.
Okay.
Maybe he'll come
We'll move on to agenda item number 3. Discussion and possible approval of an agreement between the Utah Indigent Defense Commission and Iron County to provide Title 4E federal funding. Candace Reed, come on down.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Good. This is just annual, I guess, our annual time to get the IDC grants approved and then signed by the commission. It's been circulated to the county attorney's office a couple weeks ago and then to Commissioner Cousins for approval. So there's 3 different contracts that have been approved again, which would be my contract, Frank Katchke, and then the social worker for Angelica. And then we have the Title 4E funding, which is not it's not an employee contract, but that does help subsidize for Iron County, specifically for the juvenile court public defenders. Are there any questions about those contracts or?
So I signed, were these some I already signed, or do I sign these, or does Commissioner Blake as the chair sign them?
Either one.
Either one, okay. Because I can't remember if I signed them or if
In the past, I think you have, but honestly, the chair could sign them too. It doesn't,
Okay.
either would be fine.
okay.
Okay. So we have, John, so we've got, do we have 3 or 4? So 4 separate, right?
So Candace, there's an agreement with the IDC and then the separate contracts,
Yes.
correct? So
Yep.
there's 4 different things, but one of them is the agreement. The other 3 are the contracts with the
Right.
individual attorneys.
Okay. All right. So let's, well, just so we don't get them messed up, let's just do them
That's fine.
one at a time. So let's handle agenda item number 3.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion if you're ready.
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement between Utah Indigent Defense Commission and Iron County to provide Title 4E federal funding.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So that one's approved. Agenda item number 4, discussion and possible approval of a contract for Iron County Administrative Public Defender Services for Candace Reed. You already mentioned that, so I don't.
So moved on that one.
It's moved, and and I'll second that. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 5, discussion and possible approval of 5th District Public Defender contract for Franklin Katchke. That was also mentioned.
I'll move to approve that one.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion and possible approval of Parental Defense Services Social Worker contract for 5th District for Angelica Judd.
Move to approve that.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
You're good.
Okay, thank you.
I think we've got all of those taken care of.
Okay.
Did we get all those signed then, or we did? Okay.
Yeah, so those are IDC subsidized or funded positions, and
Okay.
then the Iron County ones are on a different schedule. So
Okay.
those will be due November, December timeframe.
Okay.
So I'll see you guys in 6 months roughly.
Perfect.
Well, I'll see you before then for
So
reporting. But
was this a ratification then, or are these new contracts?
they're not. They're not new contracts. They're just approved.
Renewal?
Renewal.
Renewals.
Okay, but we're not ratifying something that's already done.
Nope.
This is a new. Okay, I just want to make sure I had my end right.
Yeah. Sorry. No, it's just the approval and.
I'll write my name on them really quick.
Oh, okay.
I have the stack here.
Thanks, Mike. Is it possible to just get a copy of those from you guys?
Yes, I'm gonna. What I'll do is, where you're here,
Uh-huh.
I'll just ask you to walk down.
Okay, down to.
Chanel will help you with that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good morning.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
And I'll see if I can get Jamie here.
There's that one. next one. That one.
Candace. Yeah, just make sure Chanel gets whatever she needs. Thank you. Hey, Jamie. Are you ready to come talk to that Cavalcade MOU? For the children's parade in Cedar City? Oh, are you? Okay. Yeah, come on over. Okay. 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 Yeah, we'll just circle back to that item when you get here. Yep, that'll be fine. Oh. Yeah, I've got your name on it. Okay. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay, no. And I can help you if you need, so, okay, thanks. She's at the post office. She'll be back.
Great. We'll move on to agenda item number 8. Wendy, this is going to be your show for the next couple of agenda items. The first one, discussion and possible approval of renewed contracts for mental health providers contracted with the Iron County Children's Justice Center with CJC client sessions covered through the VOCA grant. Professional service agreement contracts for mental health professional therapist, a Mindful Life counseling service, and Peace, Balance, and Joy consulting. It's a mouthful.
Yeah, that was a lot. Yeah, and they're largely the same as last year, but these are on an annual renewal. So the only thing that's different is we did request a rate increase in those contracts. And VOCA informed me that they did approve that rate. So instead of the $100 an hour, we've increased that to $117, which is in line with what crime victim reparations through the state pays. And also we did negotiate to get like a no-show or late cancellation fee. Largely, they're going to try to bill the client for that, so they have some skin in the game, but we don't want to leave these therapists hanging, because when those happen, then they can't fill that spot with another client on such short notice. And of course, they still have the requirement of getting some background checks on their own and sending those to Chad's office, and also sending us all of their certifications and license and all of that to make sure that they are meeting the standards that we are required to meet.
Gotcha. All right. We'll consider a motion on number 8.
I'll move to approve the renewed contracts for mental health providers contracted with the Iron County's Children's Justice Center with CJC client sessions covered through the VOCA grant. Professional service agreement contracts for mental health professional therapist, a Mindful Life counseling services, and Peace, and Balance and Joy consulting.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 9 is discussion and possible approval of grant funds from DPS pertaining to new legislation regarding providing mental health for first responders, which includes victim advocates, forensic interviewers, prosecutors, and civilian employees of a first responder agency who has been authorized to view or otherwise access information concerning crimes, accidents, or other traumatic events.
Yeah, so we were able to get a mental health grant. It's only 1 year, but this is going to cover the Children's Justice Center staff and also the county attorney's office. That amount is for $30,600. And what that covers is the 1 hour mental health checks for everybody just on an annual basis, similar to what law enforcement does for those. And also about 12 sessions per person per year, and also one critical incident, like where they need to be seen, in 12 to 24 hours. And those sessions are typically an hour and a half to 2 hours long. And so we just kind of figured out a baseline of where that needs to be. So that's the amount we settled in on, is that $30,600. I'll be working with Susan Carter on establishing the protocols for that, and there is a required quarterly report on how the money is being spent and how many people are being served by that. The downside is that we'll need to have this in the budget in future years to cover this, because this is only a 1-year grant, but it is in that new legislation that was passed effective July 1st that we have to adhere to.
Was that 30,600 total?
Yes. Yeah. And it's one that is paid up front. And so they'll be sending that to the auditor's office. And then we'll have that account set up to spend from there.
Okay. Consider motion.
Okay, I'll move for approval of grant funds from DPS pertaining to new legislation regarding providing mental health for first responders, which includes victim advocates, forensic interviewers, prosecutors, and civilian employees of a first responder agency who has been authorized to view or otherwise access information concerning crimes, accidents, or other traumatic events.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Number 10, discussion and possible approval of a proposed county code amendment to ordinance 2024-5, an ordinance regarding county livestock trails. This ordinance will be included in Iron County Code 17.30, AS 17.30.090, and providing for an effective date of, do we have an effective date?
The effective date is immediately after publication,
Gotcha.
as stated in the ordinance.
Yes, and make note that there was a previous public hearing held on June 10th regarding this issue, so there won't be any further public hearing, just action.
Thank you, Commissioners. As you noted, this was a public hearing. There was a public hearing held on July 10th regarding this item, and there was a public hearing held by the Planning Commission in the July Planning Commission meeting prior to the County Commission meeting. I think it was June 6th. And then June 6th was the date of the County Commission public hearing. And then since that time, it went back to the Planning Commission, and they make a recommendation with the modifications that have been made to the ordinance. It includes the additional language here in red that was added to the ordinance. Then with that recommendation, they recommended approval of the ordinance with that change. What that change does essentially recommends that reasonable efforts be made to contact and work with law enforcement to post the signs when they're moving livestock on county roads. And as you're aware, they have made signs. They've made them available. They reported at the Planning Commission meeting Thursday night that they've used those signs on a couple of occasions. They've been successful. They've appreciated that effort and felt that that process helped excuse me, make a better opportunity for them to be able to move livestock and be safe for both their livestock and them, and as well as the public. So I think those things can be used. They even ask if they couldn't buy some of those signs, so they had them themselves instead of having to go to the road department and get them. Just for some of the groups that use it more often, and that was provided for them. So that opportunity to do that. So other than that, I think we had some other good discussion about, trying to make sure that we ensure the ability for the livestock people to move livestock on the county roads. And this ordinance allows for that to occur without them having to follow state statute, which requires them to use that trail every year in order to keep it an active livestock trail. Because we're designated on the map, we also noted that as we become aware, and there was two additional roads that we were made aware of at the meeting that needed to be fixed on the map that went through the middle of a subdivision that there's no trail there anymore. Those modifications can be made because it's on the website. And the map is kept there, and when we become aware of a situation where that just didn't make sense, we didn't get it right on the map, we can just make those modifications. So I think everyone was satisfied, and the discussion went well, and the recommendation was to approve.
Yeah, that was a really good discussion. We had a lot of participation in those hearings. a lot of input from agriculture folks and the livestock community. Was good. I talked with Ryan Riddle this morning a little bit. He's been out on a couple of different calls with them to help provide signage and early warning stuff as well. So it's working.
Good.
So, would consider a motion.
I'll move to approve the proposed county code amendment, ordinance 2024-5, an ordinance regarding county livestock trails. This ordinance will be included in Iron County Code 17.3 as 17.3.090 and providing for an effective date. Public hearing previously held on June 10th, 2024.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is approved.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda. Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, Jamie's here.
Jamie, do you want to come up real quick? Since we made you come back from the post office, we'll cut you back in line. All right, we're back to agenda item number 7, review and possible approval of memorandum of understanding for the administration of the Cedar City Storybook Cavalcade Children's Parade. Welcome, Jamie.
Okay, so this,
I'm a little freaked out by this one, by the way.
you were?
I am still, so go ahead.
I know.
Not the only
So this was kind of worked into our labs because, like I'd mentioned earlier, our theme for this year is Treasure the Memories. And so we had reached out to the Storybook Parade asking if we could use their ship for the parade. And they said, well, let me tell you, we're not even doing the parade. I said, well, why aren't you doing the parade? So anyways, we worked it out that we could use the ship, but as we were talking to them, they said, we just need volunteers and we need people to do this. And we just felt as we were talking to Commissioner Wood that it would be a good benefit for the community. It's something that everybody enjoys, they love. They were mad when they didn't do it last year.
So are you talking taking over the parade?
Yeah, so the county would take over the parade.
And Commissioner Wood's not here to defend
I
herself?
know. So we actually, we met with her, we met with the ones that are running it currently, and then we actually met with Mayor Green as well and talked to him about what we had going. We really wanted it to stay in Cedar, though. We didn't want to move it to Parowan. We wanted it to stay in Cedar as a community event.
So a few questions.
Okay.
Obviously, there's a lot of floats that are stored.
There is.
Cedar City willing to continue to store the
And
floats?
that was part of the deal we've had with them is we want to keep the storage there. And so they were in agreement of keeping the floats in storage.
And what about insurance? Have you talked to our USIP insurance folks to see if what's involved in insuring that event?
We have not.
Who owns the event? I mean, are we gonna own it?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the past, it's been the parade has been a 501c3 in the past. They've become their own entity. I don't know how long ago, but it moved from Cedar City into a 501c3 type of an organization in years past, and that's how it's operated
So, given
for a
that,
while.
Sheriff,
Who's going to do the traffic control?
Yeah.
So that's in the MOU that I think it is Cedar City Police.
it's wholly within Cedar City, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
And that's in the MOU that they will do traffic
I believe
control?
that's in there.
In terms of the insurance, I would suggest that
I haven't, but we can review it if we need to.
Okay.
So
you have not.
I've not seen it,
Okay.
but
How urgent is it to pass this today?
it's not. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of get stuff
Yeah.
going so we could start
It might be
planning it
good.
if we needed.
You and I could have the conversations with USIP. I can tell you they're going to cover it. It might affect the owner contribution, which is essentially the premium, where we're we're not an insurance pool, we're a indemnity pool, and so you want to go in with eyes wide open on that. Where we own the event, we'll own the liability. Sheriff's spot on. I mean, we need to at least have those agreements with CCPD on the traffic control. Any other issues that?
Would this be a year-to-year agreement? I don't want to, I mean, if we did it, this is a huge undertaking. I've been involved in the Spirit of 76 parade since inception. I didn't do much with it this year because I was so busy, but over the years we built and maintained and stored, and it's a major. And I think the cavalcade's, how many floats are in that?
There was, I'd have to look at the numbers again.
Because Spirit of 76, I think
There's a lot.
they
There's
have
there's 5 storage units over there, and they're full of floats and
Right.
costumes.
because I think the Spirit of 76, I think there's 12 or 13 floats, and it's a major undertaking.
How have you felt about taking on that workload? I know it's kind of in your off time, so that's helpful, but that was my worry the first time I heard of it.
No, it is a lot, but I feel like the benefit to the community is up there.
Is
You know,
worth
we-
the sacrifice.
I think it is, yeah.
Okay.
I think it is good.
I wonder, commissioners, if you're willing to we can bring it back the next meeting or the meeting after that, kind of do a little bit more legwork on some of these questions to have some concrete answers for the commissioners, and maybe have Commissioner Wood here to defend her.
And then also, I know, and then also we need to figure out, because you did say it as a 501c, and they do have they have a fund set up for it,
Mm-hmm.
an account, so we got to figure out how to get that account.
Yeah, because I know in the past that the commission would sponsor a float, and it was
I think every 3 years.
I was going to say it was $500 every 3 years. It wasn't.
And so that paid for the upkeep of the costumes, and if they needed to do a float.
Right.
And she
So,
says
yeah, I wonder what kind of.
haven't really diminished the fund from when it was set up because of the sponsorship on there. So.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we probably need to just tighten it up a little bit and make sure that.
Let's make sure we can get the attorney's office to be able to take a hard look at that MOU.
We can review it with you with an eye of some of these questions that are
That's
raised. And
this is one that's probably not as boilerplate as others, because there are going to be some liability issues depending on how it's identified is the 501c3 still going to be involved?
No.
Are we going to liquidate that?
So they would just liquidate that, and we would just.
Okay.
It would be
Yeah,
county.
I think that's another positive to maybe let them have a minute to
So we would own the floats.
Yes.
So, because it seems like an MOU, maybe a year to year would, in case we thought, ooh, that's way more than we want to tackle, we could bail. I mean, and I agree, it's a great thing. Our kids love it, grandkids, but just in case we want out, maybe have an escape clause of some kind. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm curious what kind of long-term liability that we would take on with it. And that'd be a good thing for the attorney's office to also kind of vet that question in terms of if at some point in the future the county's done doing it, are they able to stop? Yeah.
Nope, that's good.
Well, I'll, Mr. Chair, if you're ready, I'll make a motion to table this until we can review it a little further, talk about the insurance, the MOU, just tighten that up a little bit and then bring it back later.
Yeah, I would second that
Okay.
motion as well. All in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye. It's awkward with two of us.
It is.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
It's
Jamie.
awkward in my notes too.
All right. Mr. Erickson, come on back down. Number 11 is discussion on possible approval of a partial subdivision vacate and amend for lots 18 and 19 Rainbow Meadows Ranchos Unit A to combine into a single lot renumbered 19A, located in the description as documented in the agenda. Applicant Scott and Danielle Turner.
Thank you. As a preface, I might just ask your consideration on this, and the next item are very similar, and we've had a couple of the last few meetings. These are such minor amendments, and now this was kind of an oversight when we redid last year the ordinance, the authorizing land use authority to be zoning administrator, or myself to approve new plats. These minor amendments seems awkward now to have to bring to the county commission when all we're doing is there's no public hearing, there's no other requirement. It's just we left it on as a county commission approval rather than land use authority appointed. And with your consideration, I'd like to do just a short ordinance for the next planning commission meeting that they review and recommend that these could be approved by staff instead of having to come. Because all we're doing is, in this case, and the ones that we review would be taking 2 lots and making into a single, or taking 3 lots and making them into 2. And it's, it's just pretty, we're just assuring that they meet the minimum lot size, that they're, when there's a road to be vacated or some other plat amendment that would require a legislative approval, then those would come here. But these that are so simple, I'd like to just make them simpler for people, because we could review those and approve them, and they could record these plats much easier than having to come here when there's really no public review. Nobody that even knows about it. We don't do a public hearing or anything, so I'd appreciate that consideration. This particular one is located in the Rainbow Meadows Ranchos, which is up east of Bryan Head, on the north side of Highway 143. And there are just 2 lots there in the very corner. They're zoned R1. You can see all the surrounding property is zoned A20. And it's just these 2 lots right down here in the bottom. They're 1 acre lots, and they're having a hard time meeting the setbacks. There's already a dwelling on there, and they'd like to do a guest house on there and have more setback room. So they're simply vacating the 2 and combining them into a single lot. It would be renumbered 19A. It's as simple as that. It really it meets all the, because it was a pre-existing lot and it's R1, then this actually makes it more conforming, right? Because it's a little larger lot, and so
Okay.
staff recommends approval.
Pretty basic.
All right.
Okay, I'll move to approve the partial subdivision vacate and amend for lots 18 and 19 Rainbow Meadows Ranchos, Unit A, to combine into a single lot renumbered 19A, located in the description as noted in the agenda. And the applicant is Scott and Danielle Turner.
I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Agenda item number 12, discussion and possible approval of a partial subdivision vacate and amend for Lot 1, Block G, Westview Estates Subdivision, Phase 4, to combine into a single lot renumbered 6A. The legal description is included in the agenda.
Maybe an error on that. I don't know why I got 6A on there. It is Lot 1. It's just Lot 1, Block G, and we're vacating it from a building lot to a public. It's owned by the homeowners association, and they want to dedicate it as open space, so that on the plat it would be recorded as a common space, open space owned by the association, so they can make a park there. So it's be a dedicated open space. The park, they would own the equipment, put it in, maintain it. So it's not that they're asking the county to do a park there. It's just that they want it to be open space, and right now it's just considered a building lot.
Gotcha.
And that's
You
what
say it's owned by the
plan-
HOA?
It's owned by the HOA. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just strike
State Subdivision Owners
strike
Association. Yeah, I don't know where the 6A, I must have made a mistake when I did the agenda request.
So we're not renumbering it, it's
No,
just,
It's
okay.
still Lot 1, Block G, simply being dedicated as open space common area.
okay.
It's you can see it's right in the middle of this residential neighborhood for the Westview Estate subdivision, zoned R1 half. It's just that lot right on the corner. There's nothing on it currently, and they want to make it a park lot for open space common area that they can, as an association, develop. And since they own it, it's not being given to the county. It's not expected to be maintained by the county. It's just as you can see, to be designated as open space common area, previously known as Lot 1. And so it'll just continue under their ownership, but be taken out of the so that they don't have to worry about the setbacks of a building lot and can develop it as a park and open space.
So it's sorry to redo, but Westview Estates subdivision phase 4 lot 1.
That's correct.
That's it. Okay. All right. I'll move to
Lot
approve
1, Block G.
Block G. Okay. I'll move to approve partial subdivision vacate and amend for lot 1, Block G, Westview Estates subdivision phase 4, lot 1, Block G. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Done.
Thank you. Can we get signatures on those? Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Reed.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Thanks. All right, we are on to agenda item number 13, canvass of the June 25th, 2024 primary election. Turn the time over to our clerk, John Whitaker.
Okay, so I'm going to make a little presentation, and then I'm sure there's going to be some discussion. I think, first and foremost, under 284301, if subsection C right here, if one or more of the county legislative body fails to attend the meeting of the Board of County Canvassers, the remaining members shall replace the absent member by appointing in the order named. And so the county treasurer and the assessor weren't able to make it, but the county sheriff is. I don't know if maybe, Sheriff, you could join the commissioners on the dais. You going to pull that out? Okay. All righty. So after each election, the county clerk will present the canvass to the legislative body for certification. This is in code. I'm going to be a little bit long-winded today. I apologize. Each county legislative body is the Board of Canvassers for the county. We'll skip that special district. The Board of Canvassers shall meet to canvass the returns at the usual place of the meeting of the county legislative body at a date and time to be determined by the county clerk that is no sooner than 7 days after the election and no later than 14 days after the election. Today is day 13. Before the Board of Canvassers convenes, the election officer shall count the ballots, prepare the summary of all ballots counted and all ballots not counted with an explanation regarding the reason the ballots were not counted, and make available to the Board of Canvassers for inspection all ballots, registers, books, forms, and forms related to the election. The Board of Canvassers shall canvass the election returns by publicly reviewing the summary reports prepared by the election officer and any ballots. And forgot to have those out. Let's send one more. Okay. So those are the summary reports. This is the precinct report. It's 149 pages long. You're welcome to look at that. That's the reports of votes by precinct. The Board of Canvassers, let's see, and certify the votes cast, each person for and against each ballot proposition. And the Board of Canvassers shall, once having begun the canvass, continue until it is completed. In other words, we're here. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about what we do in terms of each election. Voter roll maintenance is something that happens 365 days of the year. And it was one of the keystones of making sure you've got free and fair elections, that everybody who wants to vote is able to vote and is eligible to vote, and everyone who isn't is not. Before each election, we perform a logic and accuracy test. What we do is we mark a deck of test ballots, and we run them through the machines. We basically put the machines through their paces and make sure that the results that they yield are the ones that we know are on the test deck. And in fact, we had a problem this year, didn't we, Chanel? And the problem was our hand count. And it took us a minute to figure out what had happened, but we had one that we just didn't carry the one right or whatever. The machines don't blink. That helps us as election officers to feel comfortable with the election and that we can have confidence in the equipment as we move forward. That happens before the election. Then, during the election, we do what's called a signature audit, and rather than me talk about it, I wonder, Chanel, if you could. Chanel is my chief deputy, and she is awesome.
I will state my name. My name is Chanel Bess. I am John's chief deputy clerk, as he said. Well, started to say. The signature audit is now actually a thing that we are doing through through the process, where it used to be that we would do it after we tabulated the ballots, but now we have to actually verify. We have to do a signature audit on 1% of the ballots before we can even take the ballots out of the envelopes. And so the purpose of the signature verification audit is to ensure that the election workers perform signature verification by properly passing or challenging ballots prior to the tabulation. So before we can even start, sorry, I'm going to be a little bit long-winded too, just so you guys kind of understand the process as well. So before our deputies downstairs can even start verifying of signatures, we have to go through a signature verification training each year. So this year we've actually had to do two trainings with the state. So the state, we do them Zoom. Well, we'll kind of do like we'll do a Zoom meeting with the state, all 29 counties, all of the deputies, clerks. We all kind of go through the Zoom meeting, and then they pass the this verification or the training on to us that we then have to do on our own. And before we can, like I said, before the deputies can even start verifying the signatures, they have to take this test, and we have to then send it on to the lieutenant governor's office, and they do know who is, verifying the signatures through the process through our VISTA program that we do use. And so I have my certificate right here that I have, passed it. I just brought it up just so I can say the correct verbiage. And so I don't actually verify any of the signatures, because if I verify the signatures, then I cannot audit them. So we have two gals downstairs in the office that actually verify the signatures, because through the verification signature processing, we cannot have any interruptions. So the two that are verifying, if the phone rings, their phone rings, they can't pick it up. If somebody comes to the counter, they cannot go to the counter and help. If they want to eat lunch, they actually have to finish their batch before they can go eat lunch or breakfast or take a break, whatever. So it is no interruptions through the process. That is set in code that we do get to follow. John, I told you I was going to be long-winded. So anyways, we have to do 1% of the ballots, 1% of the audit of the ballots. So that's not a lot, but so I think we had like 9,826 ballots, that votes that counted. And so we had to do 1% of that. So that would be like 98 that I have to verify. But I really never know how many is going to. So like I say, it's kind of in each day that I'm auditing the ballots, the signatures. And so I will usually do like 4 in a batch. So we do batches of 50. So I'll usually do 4 in a batch, and it's usually like 3 or 4 batches a day that I will verify, that I will audit the signatures. And so it's just randomly, I pull out a batch, I open up the voters' registration, and I just compare their signature to what we do have on file to what is on the paper. So they're great. My deputies do know what they're doing. They do a great job. But anytime the deputies do, come across a signature that they aren't sure about, 2 of us have to actually reject that. And so they'll pull me over. We have a lot of different resources that we do kind of reach out to. And if we do find another resource in, say, like recorders or a marriage license, then we actually document that down on the, on the voter's affidavit, saying that we found it in recorders or the marriage license, whatever. We don't go to that extent. We don't usually have to go to that extent very far, because we also pull signatures from driver's licenses as well. And so, 2 of us have to look at those if we do reject them. And then, we have to make that notation on the ballot, on the envelope, not the ballot itself, on the voter affidavit envelope. So we do 1%. This year, we actually done 131. Like I said, it's over the 98 that we have to, but we're better off being safe than sorry. So, but the deputies really do a great job downstairs. I really can't thank them enough, because they are all hands on deck. Like, it's a lot of pressure, and I will say, like this year, we have to send out cure letters to all signatures that we do reject. So we reject somebody's ballot due to signatures not matching. They return their ballots unsigned, or there is no affidavit, or it was signed by another voter. So just a brief little example, we send out a cure letter to somebody that their signature didn't match, and this voter actually came and she's like, "Thank you." I didn't mean to say that. I didn't mean to say she. Anyways, that voter came in. That person came in, and they were like, "Thank you." And this voter was like, "I had to have somebody else sign it for me because I was actually out of town and I had forgot to sign it. I had voted my ballot, but I hadn't signed it." And so she then came in and it was cured. And so our process does work. So she was like, "Wow, I'm actually so glad that you guys do." We do. We look at every single signature. So it is actually us, that look at it ourselves. So any questions on anything? I don't want them. So anyways, there's that.
Thank you.
You guys really have any questions, by the way? Okay.
No, not about signatures. Thank you.
You talked him into a lull.
I know.
Thank you, Chanel. So then we have the post-election audit, which is actually done before the canvass now. The law has changed. The law changes in elections all the time. And so this was a more recent change, so that instead of after the election, it's done kind of during the election. Commissioner Blake and Addison Adams, the Parowan Police Chief, participated in that. Maybe tell us, you talked about it once already, but there's more people here now.
No, so in the audit, the Lieutenant Governor's office randomly chooses 2 batches of ballots. Batches Chanel mentioned batches are 50 apiece. So we audited 100 ballots. What we do is look at the physical ballot. We compare it to the scanned in version on the big screen. We also look at the vote counted record to make sure that what is counted in the computer is consistent with what's on the scanned version, which is consistent with the handwritten version. We spent time auditing 100 of those ballots as randomly chosen by the Lieutenant Governor's office, and we found that they were 100% correct in the way that they were counted. There were a couple of, help me with the terminology, where there's some question.
Oh, yeah. So a few ballots that required adjudication.
Adjudication. So basically, if the if there's like one circle colored in and then scratched out and another circle colored in,
Voter changes their mind or whatever, yeah.
those ballots are put into a separate file, and we look at those very closely to determine what the intent of the voter was. You know, and in this case, you know, one was marked, then scratched out, then another one marked and circled with a big arrow that said this one. So it was very obvious what the intent of the voter was. Just things like that.
That's great. Let me ask you about one. I'm hoping how well I did on my education.
Yes.
What was the little number about? Do you remember?
Which
The little number that sprayed on the.
so and this is a new thing, correct?
It is.
So
I'm
there's
so happy that you're explaining this.
well, I don't know what the number's called.
Cast vote record.
There's a cast vote record number. What it is basically a serial number that's attached to each of the ballots. That cast vote serial number is checked through all those stages to make sure that that cast vote number matches on the ballot, the scanned version as well as the counted version. Each ballot also contains the precinct of the voter, and there's a ballot number.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what that number is called.
But the main thing is the precinct, and then that number is the cast vote record.
Right. So we have the cast vote record number, the precinct that the voter cast that ballot, and we make sure that all of those match. And each of that is done by hand.
What if I, as a voter, color outside of the lines on my oval? Any observations on that?
Yes. So if it's colored outside the lines, or if if it looks wonky, there is a notation made that there is an unusual vote mark.
Oh, yeah. If what I was getting at is sometimes people color outside of the lines, and it's another way to kind of look and go, oh yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody's vote. I mean, it's not done electronically. Everybody does it with a pen or a pencil or whatever. So it's really easy to look at the scanned version, look at the physical version, and say, yes, that's the same one because the circle is marked the same way. And some of them, there's a weird mark. One of them that was in question, it's like, okay, there's a weird mark down here. Looked like they spilled breakfast on it and wiped it off, and that actually picked up in the scanner. So you could see a weird mark and it's wiped off breakfast and so it was obviously the same ballot.
You know, interestingly, Chanel and I do all the adjudication, and it didn't come up in your batches that we did the post-election audit on.
Mm-hmm.
But we had one, and there was just a weird. Like it had picked it up that there was an unclear mark on another vote in this, and what we couldn't figure it out. So Chanel went and pulled the physical ballot, and what had happened was they'd marked one and then changed their mind and erased it, but it was kind of an old eraser, and it kind of smeared and it was funny because we couldn't tell what it was on the screen, but yeah, and you know, it's really amazing how well it picks it up. So you have the three elements, right? The paper ballot, the image of the ballot, and then the cast vote record itself, and we compared those three.
Yes.
And did we find anything that concerned you?
No, it was very straightforward. It's very simple to read, and there were no discrepancies between those ballots.
Yeah, Chanel will come up.
And this is I've done this now for several years, and through each of those processes, we've never found any discrepancies.
Yeah.
Over the years as I've been involved in that audit.
Chanel.
So, Chanel Best, Chief Deputy Clerk, Iron County. So, I'm just jumping up to just let you guys know. John will be really surprised that I'm saying this, but you guys are all invited to come
Always.
to our election audit. I would actually love to see people come to our post-election audit and our logic and accuracy testing. So it is open to the public. It is posted. It's posted on our website about, almost 60 days prior to an election. It's up there forever. And so you guys are welcome to come. If you know me, I'm pretty shy, but I would love to actually have people come because I really vet for our election process here in the state of Utah and Iron County.
Yeah, thank you. And we want more participation in that because the more people that can see that, the more that can understand, some of the safeguards that are in place, some of the ways that we guarantee that. So we did the post-election audit. On the election turnout, we were just under 50%. About 4% voted in person. Here are the summary results as per the code that we read. Out of 19,928 voters, 9,826 cast ballots. This was the Republican primary. There was no other primary. There were, I've cut that off. I was trying to make it big so you could see it, but there's the race for senator there. You can see the results. Curtis had 3822, Walton had 686, Wilson had 1249, Staggs had 3880. There was the Jenkins and Malloy race for House District 2, governor and lieutenant governor, and you've got those in front of you. Attorney General, State Auditor, State School Board 15. Interestingly, State School Board 15 only really was only in the Canaryville and borough precincts. That was the way that particular state school board district was ran, and they've changed that not too long ago to be a partisan primary. So that was actually a Republican for State School Board District 15 for that primary. And then we had County Commission C. And that was Ken Robinson with 6,452 votes versus Miley Edwards with 3,250 votes. Did I say it wrong? Yeah. 3,250. What did I say? Yeah? Yeah, that's right. Okay. Okay, and one of the things we appreciate the Lieutenant Governor's office. Some of these things that we do are somewhat newer, but we believe it helps with education and for people to know kind of what happened on this. So these are Canvas statistics that we're required to publish. So there were 19,928 active voters. There were 9,300 let's see. Yep, 9,384 counted ballots by mail or drop box, 404 in person. The UOCAVA, the overseas or disabled voters, 12 were counted, and then there were 38 provisional voters, leading to that total again of 9826. And one of the questions we have to answer is, does the total ballots counted match the number of votes given in the vote history in VISTA? And the answer is yes. VISTA is the statewide voter registration program, and we have to reconcile to that each day. And actually, when we're receiving ballots, we reconcile multiple times a day so that we can, if we find an error, we can correct it before we get too far down the road. There's been a lot made this election about the cure list. These are challenged ballots, and Chanel talked a little bit about that. But the number of envelopes with a signature not matching was 19. Number of unsigned envelopes was 11. Number of challenge ballots for other curable reasons was 9. 3 had no affidavit. 6 were signed by someone else. The total number of challenge ballots not cured was 39. The total number of ballots where the voter submitted a disability affidavit were 0. Rejected ballot statistics, the number of ballots that were returned after the postmark deadline, and we're going to talk about this more in a minute, 491. The number of ballots rejected for other reasons, and sometimes folks will drop their ballot in a ballot box without the envelope and the affidavit, and we aren't able to accept that because we can't show that it was in its envelope that we sent the person, nor that it was signed. So we have those, but they don't get to be counted. So the total number of rejected by-mail ballots that were not counted is 497. Provisional ballots, if you come in on election day or during early voting and you've moved, or if it's a new registration, Utah law allows that. Those voters, there were 43 of those, I'm getting caught in tongue. Number of provisional ballots counted was 38, and the total number of ballots not counted were 5. and the reasons were insufficient ID for 1 and other for 4. And this particular election was interesting because the requirement was to have affiliated Republican by January 9th. And so 4 people wanted to vote provisionally, but it was too late to change party affiliation. Their party affiliation will change, but their ballot did not count because they hadn't registered as a Republican by January 9th. Number of provisional ballots that were same-day registration, and that's 5. Okay. So I'm a nerd. We're going to talk about Schrodinger's cat. Erwin Schrödinger in 1935 came up with a hypothesis that if you put a cat in the box with a vial of poison, and there's some trigger for the poison, that you can assume that the cat is both dead and alive, because you don't know if the poison has been triggered or if the cat has died. And we have this situation with quite a number of ballots that came back with a postmark that was too late. There's another little graphic. Schrodinger's cat is both dead and alive, and that's kind of the logic. We've gone around this. I'm going to go through the postmark concern. So here's one of those that came. These came a couple days after the election. They were postmarked June 25th. They had to be postmarked by June 24th to count. I got frustrated and I wrote a letter to everybody in the Postal Service that I had emails for, all the clerks in the 847 zip codes. What happens is all of our mail goes to Vegas and back. And so I kind of, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So here's the law. Except as otherwise provided in 28-16-404, to be valid, a ballot that is mailed must be clearly postmarked before Election Day or otherwise clearly marked by the post office as received by the post office before Election Day, and received in the office of the election officer before noon on the day of the canvass. On Thursday, June 27th, over 400 ballots came in with a late postmark, June 25th, and that was a very high number. They were intermixed with hand-stamped envelopes showing a valid date and the mechanical 25th postmark. So here are some examples of those. And the blue is my little superimposition that when I sent my email. But you can see on that top one, that one was sent from St. George Harmons on June 24th, but the mechanical postmark was the 25th. This is another one. The second one's a little bit harder to see. These were just stacked up on the scanner, so you're just seeing kind of the top of each envelope. But that one went through St. Petersburg, Florida on the 20th of June, and then was again had a cancellation stamp on Vegas on June 25th. Enterprise on the 24th, Vegas on the 25th. And so these were intermixed with all these, and I thought, man, I don't believe that all these were mailed late. And so I got frustrated. I wrote my letter. I also got thinking, I have a good contact with the Postal Service, and every time we go through this, we learn a little bit more. So this is the postmark, and you won't be able to see it from back there, but if you look at your mail, you'll find a little orange barcode on the back. And that orange barcode it gives the date and the time which and a piece of mail goes when it first enters the postal machine. And so what I did was I thought, well, maybe I could show that somehow these were early enough on the 25th that I could say, hey, listen, there's no way they could have been dropped in a mailbox on the 25th. And so I drove to Salt Lake and back. Lanny Chapman, the Salt Lake clerk, she was kind enough to lend me her. You have to have an ultraviolet scanner to scan this little orange barcode. And I was hoping to show that the ballots entered the mail stream early enough to prove they should count. Technically, even if that scheme had worked, that idea had worked, I would still be breaking the law because the law just says the postmark is all I can go by. It was unsuccessful in that Chanel and I went through and scanned, and the earliest that we found was 6 p.m. on Election Day, which is to say that does give the, in Vegas, that does give them time to be mailed on election day and get to the post office. Now, it doesn't change my suspicion, but what that means is I have no proof, right? I have no proof that some of these might be able to be counted. So at that time, you know, Chanel and I talked it through, and ultimately the responsibility rides with me, and I didn't have any way I could count them.
John, would you be willing to read the letter into the record to the post office, please? I think it'd give us context of what.
Yeah, I want to talk about the letter. I will, but I'm going to give some preface because I actually wish I hadn't have written the letter by now. You know, discretion is the better part of valor. We'll get to that. I wonder, Chad, if you could speak to the idea and kind of what your understanding of the affidavit idea that Paul and a couple of folks have.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that as the county's attorney, I need to apply the law to facts, and that's the same if it's a criminal prosecution and you're making decisions on what charge is appropriate. And it's also true when I'm advising commissioners and department heads and elected officials. So I agree with John that the statute is pretty clear, and those ballots that do not clearly have a postmark before Election Day, unfortunately, don't count. There is, Commissioner Cousins, you'll probably speak to this, I'm guessing, the affidavits.
Mm-hmm.
There have been some voters who have reached out and said that they would sign a sworn affidavit that they, in fact, place their ballot in the mail prior to Election Day. And I think that there's value in that in as much as it highlights the scope and the scale of the issue, because I think two things can be true at once. I think that there's an issue that needs to be addressed, whether that be our process with the U.S. Postal Service in Iron County and how things are received, whether they go to Vegas or not, whether they're hand-stamped or not. I think whether the legislature should make some corrections. I think that is true, but I think it's also true that the law is clear and that those ballots that are not clearly marked before Election Day, unfortunately, cannot count. And so if there are affidavits, I think that it helps, again, highlight the issue, the scope and scale, so that we can hopefully address this issue for future elections. I don't think that it cures or overcomes the burden that the plain language of the statute puts on the clerk for the purposes of this election.
Thank you. Yeah. Not really taking comments.
I just had one question about when you showed the ones that had two postmarks, were those able to be counted?
No, those were.
Because the earlier postmark was hand stamped or whatever.
Right.
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to hear if that was counted.
Yeah. I'll skip back to the law there. Oh, maybe. Where did I put it? There you go. Yeah, so the law says they have to be clearly postmarked before Election Day or otherwise clearly marked by the post office as received by the post office before Election Day. So if you come here, even though there is a stamp on the 25th, there's also a stamp on the 24th. That's actually what got me riled up, because these were mixed in with all these others that didn't have such a mark, only had the 25th. Like this one only has a cancellation mark of the 25th. Now,
Those were the ones lucky enough to think to do that, Jeff.
well, and we do tell people that, but I'm going to read the letter, Paul, and I'm not. Sometimes you act out of frustration, and I wrote a letter, and this is it. Okay. All right, so this requires a little bit of groundwork before I read it. So since last fall, all of the mail from the 847 counties, which is to say Millard, Beaver, Iron, Washington,
Paiute.
Sevier, Paiute, Garfield, and Kane, it's all routed through Vegas. And we've had concern. We met with them during our spring meetings, the postal people, about this concern, and they assured us that the postmarks are timely. So I was pretty frustrated. I really want the votes to be able to count when they're legally able to count. And so out of frustration, I wrote this. And okay, good afternoon. On this email are all my contacts with the USPS, the Utah Lieutenant Governor's Office, key staff, Iron County Attorney staff, and county election staff and clerks for the 847 3-digit zip codes. I am livid. And I kind of actually did headers. So the first header is pointlessly rejected ballots. In spite of repeated assurances, I once again have a large number of return ballots that are not able to be counted by Utah law, and I give the reference, and that's the code I just read, actually. In the mail today, there were 429 by-mail Iron County ballots. Of those, 14 will be able to be counted, 415 will not. Utah law requires that a ballot envelope be stamped with a date before the election. So in this case, June 24th. I'm upset because nearly all of the ballot envelopes that will not be counted are mechanically stamped June 25th at the Las Vegas Sort Center. Those lines are really long. Most damning is, and I'm not sure I didn't swear. Most damning is that on all the countable ballot envelopes, there was both the mechanical Las Vegas stamp plus another stamp with an earlier date. Either a hand stamp at a local post office or a mechanical stamp from another place. And I showed those before on the screen. Please see the attached PDF, and that's actually the same image. Because both the ballot envelopes are going to be rejected, as well as those that will count, all have the June 25th cancellation stamp, I can only assume that at least some of those that bear the June 25th date were mailed on the 24th and should therefore be counted. However, because of the maddening 340-mile journey all mail must take to the Vegas Sort Center and back, they were likely stamped after midnight, even though they entered the mail stream on the 24th. Caps, italicized. This is unacceptable. The next heading is silenced voices. Also, even if I felt it were appropriate to violate Utah election code, it's not, by the way, and count some or all of the ballots in these envelopes, how would I know which were stamped after midnight due to a system that is too big to care, but also too inefficient to function properly, and those which were actually mailed after the deadline? When I stand before the Board of Commissioners and present the canvass of election results, it is a sacred thing to me. I stand and present the results, my procedures, the turnout, any problems, and how it went. This time I feel that over 400 voices were silenced for no good reason. This has been a worry for some time with similar evidence from earlier elections. Demand for corrective action. I am demanding that this issue be addressed, not only for ballots and election mail, but for better service to all 847 zip codes, and I actually get into some wonkish stuff here. I'm talking proper sleeves when mail is damaged. I am talking better priority for Utah mail. I am talking more proactive communication from Vegas to 847 postmasters and staff. I have visited with local postmasters who are quietly frustrated at the poor service from the Las Vegas Sort Center. They might not say it, but I will. You must give equal priority to Utah mail, especially election mail. You must properly staff and equip your teams so that an appropriate level of service can be provided. Local postmasters must have a clear chain of command through which to escalate questions and problems. In this era of distrust in core American institutions, your performance has been subpar. Utah is an all-by-mail state for elections, and the Lieutenant Governor's office, as well as the clerk's offices around the state, goodness. The older I get, the leakier I get. As well as clerk's offices around the state regularly defend the USPS, but you must make yourself defensible. My ability and willingness to defend the USPS is waning. Step up. You are failing us in something as simple as a timely postmark. Consequences of inaction. This is not something trite. If confidence is lost for elections, the USPS, and other key institutions, we will eventually tear apart the fabric of our society. Your incompetence in this regard damages both your reputation and ours as Utah election officials. If I do not see some concrete policy and procedural steps from the USPS on this matter, I will have no choice but to modify my instructions to voters, reflecting a loss in confidence in the USPS's ability to perform its duty. I will also pursue legal action such as I am able to compel better performance. And then I ask for some guidance and training. Let's see if I can get back to the right. So yeah, my infamous now letter.
John, I think, and I appreciate you reading that, I think that everybody online or in the audience can see the emotion of our clerk. I've been doing this, 6 years, I think, and I know John takes this extremely seriously in his office, and I think they do a wonderful job. And so as we deliberate this, in no way are my comments meant to criticize them, and because I think they do their best, and it's really hard, especially as time goes on. It's becoming more and more difficult for clerks in their offices with the criticism and the microscope that's on them. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you, and I'm almost done on this part.
Okay. So sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. So yeah, the letter. So there is an opportunity cost of not certifying. We have, and the number is not now precise. I had written this before I had the final number, but 400 or so suspect ballots versus 9,826 counted votes being silenced. It's a tough situation, but that's a pretty stark, certifying versus not. This list will grow. This is what I had as of last night for corrective action. I grew up Blaine in the aerospace world, and when we had to have an MRB, we would go through corrective action, and this is not different. I think, unfortunately, I'm going to have to change my messaging, as I wrote in the letter, to don't delay. If it's close to Election Day, use a drop box. One of the things that we have, but we weren't able to put in place for this election, are the 24-hour outside drop boxes. And that will help with folks that can't go to a drop box in a city office during business hours. So those are there, and there's some requirements that we will meet for those. But there will be a drop box in Cedar and in Enoch and here at the courthouse. 24-hour drop boxes. And then we will, I've already made arrangements with the state election director. We're going to meet with the Postal Service and demand correction. He had worked in Weber County before, and he had made some arrangements with the Ogden Post Office for like a more of a direct delivery, which we really didn't consider possible. And so we're hoping to kind of visit with some folks at the Postal Service. There's a couple there. This is going to sound like bash on the USPS day, and certainly I'm still hurting because of what happened. But there are some remarkable people there that think outside of the box, and we're gonna sit down with them. So finally, I recommend certification. The law requires a postmark dated before Election Day. It does not say anything about when the ballot is mailed, and we do tell people, if you're pushing it, get a hand stamp. I hate the situation, and my actions reflect that. I probably wrote a letter that's by all accounts petulant. I drove to Salt Lake and back, hoping against hope that we could, try to make those count. However, both myself and you as the Board of Canvassers are bound by the law. Not certifying would put at risk 9,800 voices in favor of the 400 or so that I'm unable to prove. And that's my presentation.
Any comment? Any question, comment from the public?
When the legislature decided to go with universal mail-in balloting, a lot of us knew this was going to be a problem. We have a couple of races just a few hundred votes apart. Really close races in this state. This is a big deal. If we can't trust the post office, why are we using them? I think we got to back it. And this isn't up to you guys. This is the state. they've got to back off this universal mail-in balloting. It's broken. Blind nay, Cedar City.
Thank you, Blaine.
My name is Brad Green. I want to point out a stark contrast. In the beginning, John paraded some people up here to talk about what they witnessed of how we secure our election and make sure that the integrity is upheld. We heard from his top clerk. We heard from Commissioner Blake. We heard about audits. And I think those things are appropriate to show confidence that the election was not interfered with. We did not see a postmaster paraded up here to give us confidence that that portion of the election was not interfered with. And my assertion is that it was. Whether intentionally or not, there were ballots that were 5 days before they got a Las Vegas timestamp. That's not acceptable. There's no way the public can trust a system that is proven to be so inefficient and inaccurate. I personally do not believe that it would be appropriate or moral for you to certify this. I think it's important that we raise that red flag and see what remedies we can get, because this is marginalizing rural Utah, and that's going to cost us our society. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Camille Topham. Me and my family were leaving for Colorado, and on our way, we dropped off our ballots on the June 23rd in the morning at the Enoch City post box, the blue box, because I didn't trust my own post box. So I want to make sure it was, because there was no ballot box drop off. I almost put it in the Enoch City bill box so they could just take it in the city office and count it, but I knew that probably wouldn't happen, so I put it in the post box. And then we received letters. Me, my husband, and my daughter received letters saying they were rejected because they didn't make postmark. And they weren't on the deadline. I was shocked. I've been voting in Iron County for 33 years, since I was 18. I have never had anything like this happen. Sorry. I get old. I get cry too. I have been...
Believe me, I understand.
I have been using the mail-in ballots since they kind of started coming out. I have put some in the boxes personally, but mostly I have been mailing them in. Even though I was upset, I figured we were the only ones until Paul put out a message on Facebook, and then I realized there were more of us. So I reached out to Paul and I said, count us 3. There's 3 of us in one household, and then my mother's in Paraguna. So it really upsets me, because why are we sending our ballots out of state? Like, isn't that opportunity for fraud? Like, why aren't we keeping them at least in the state? I don't get why Nevada has control over our ballots. It should be a state to state. I voted for Jenkins, and to know how close that came, like, yeah, I felt invalidated. I hope that this fixes, I hope we get rid of this mail-in ballot unless you have an absolute reason, or the 24-hour ballot boxes. That's what I really would like if it's under like cameras. Because I've faltered in my faith in the election system for quite some time, but with the Utah Postal Service, or not even the Utah, but the U.S. Postal Service, I have no faith anymore. Thank you.
So just a couple of follow-ups there. So we do have those boxes physically. We have to advertise for that, so we didn't feel like we could do it this election, but we will have those the next election, and we will certainly report back on the on kind of how it goes with the Postal Service, because right now that's what the law is, and I know that there's probably going to be some efforts to maybe make some changes, but I'm bound by the law. So.
Yeah. Another thing, when you say that it has to be postmarked, when someone in our older communities, they think, oh, I turn it in before the date, that's a postmark. And so it's a misinformation that, oh, it has to be postmarked. Because when we turn it in, we think that next day, I thought Monday it would be postmarked.
Well, it's a reasonable assumption, and that's why I was upset.
Yeah, and so everybody, I think that's how the community thinks. We think that, oh, if we get it in before the day, it's going to be postmarked, not knowing it goes completely out of state and comes back in, and then we don't get it. So
yeah, and that's, certainly I can't control the Postal Service, but we can certainly meet with them, and I can change my messaging. It's like, if you don't, if you're all worried, put it in one of the boxes.
I think getting your message out, but when it's on a weekend, you don't have options,
Yeah, those 24-hour boxes, I think will help.
I think that will help a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for taking comment. This is such a serious issue. I came straight from the gym because I've
sorry, could you tell us your name?
Stephanie Hill. Thank you. Thank you, Clerk Whitaker. I apologize. I'm a little bit embarrassed because I'm so disheveled. And you started the crying, so it's all your fault.
I'm a boob.
Well, yeah, it's all your fault. I'd like to speak to a bigger issue. The one at hand is going to take some serious intervention from county officials, clearly. But it was about 3 years ago when I was involved with a constitutionally minded organization, TAF, Take Action for Freedom. We aligned with some people at the state level because we saw some major concerning discrepancies in between the rolls and the ballots that were actually coming in. I've been scrambling to get some of that information. As I quote this, I want you to understand that this was part of a state effort that involves hundreds of hours of investigation and hundreds of hours of canvassing. And what we were able to come up with, and again, I apologize for this, the concern and the initiative that we had hoped to spark was to move completely away from default mailed ballots and go back to county-based, in-person voting. It never got traction. I'm not sure why. I think it's going to get some traction now. I don't have any inclination to bash the U.S. Postal Service, but it's failed us. And we have the capacity as a county, and I think in such troubled times as we're experiencing, we have the capacity, you have the capacity to, we have the capacity to assure civil living, as manifested by Ms. Topham and Mr. Whitaker, and probably even myself, with such emotion. This is the most important thing that we do as citizens in this country. It's the greatest blessing we enjoy. It's the greatest responsibility. And for even one vote to be dismissed is not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. As I've already mentioned, I was scouring for some of the records, and what we saw with regard to canvassing, that in Iron County, this is in 2020, no, excuse me, this is in 2022, 21 and 22, 6.8% faulty addresses. It wasn't acceptable then. I'm so grateful that we find ourselves in even darker waters at this point, because we have got to, we're not going to be able to school the USPS. We're not going to be able to school them. And thank you, Mr. Whitaker, for trying to do that. We're going to have to go back. I'm on the school board. What was the voter turnout in this primary election? Wasn't it like 23%?
It was 49.
Oh, it was almost half. Remarkable, right? And yet, what can we do within our society to instill within the children that this is such a critical issue? What I would suggest is that we go back to having it be a holiday, and that we somehow find those people who can't get to the polling stations, and that we carpool. I am sure, share ride shares. I'm sure that the parties would be more than happy to do that. We've got to reinstill this concept that voting is sacred and that we need everyone's voice and that, in fact, everything be counted. I'm going to do what I can to get the information that I've made a cursory reference to. I'm going to do what I can to get that back to you. This group, which was statewide, it was an enormous campaign. You remember 2 years ago there was the referendum. That was part of this movement, and it's all but disappeared. At any rate, this is still critical information, and I hope that we can all see that it's pointing to the fact that within this county we have to take care of business, and the best way, it seems to me, for that to happen is that we have in-person voting again. Anyway, thank you very much for taking my comments.
Thank you.
Thanks.
My name is Tiffany Matthews, and I'm a resident in Cedar City. So there are very few things that I value more than the right to vote. And to be honest with you, this is my first and hopefully the last time I'll ever trust the mail system for it. I prefer to vote in person. And then there's times that I usually or other times I've used the drop box. This has been an interesting summer. Been very busy. I don't like to vote too early either. I don't like to put my ballot in the mail 2 weeks before because I might come up with information that I want to have a different vote. So I do not like to vote too early. It's been very busy on the week leading up to election week. On the 23rd, on Sunday, I knew I still hadn't voted. We're leaving at 6 o'clock the next morning. That's why I absolutely know mine was not put in the
in town.
Because I left for Lake Powell with 35 girls at 6 a.m. Monday morning, the 24th. I know, we were crazy. So I knew I was leaving.
You're still alive.
But yeah, I'm just glad for that. Monday morning at 6 a.m. So I made sure that I put my ballot, didn't trust my own mailbox, in a secured box, drove to the post office on 100 West, was put in there before 2 p.m. on June 23rd, and left the 24th and did not return until that next Thursday. I hold voting so sacred that I'm calling up my friends that are also going to Lake Powell with me, the other adult leaders, to remind them, make sure you get your ballot in today, to make sure that happened. I have a son and a husband that I could have left it for them to put in the drop box. They're also very patriotic people, but not quite as much as their wife and their mother. So I didn't want them to get distracted and my vote not be put in the drop box with theirs. So all this time I've assumed my vote also counted, right? And I leave to go to another home of mine in Millard County, and I came home Saturday night with this letter informing me that it had not been, that it was not postmarked correctly. It was too late. So I'm aware that we're in a situation right here where it's pretty hard to turn back the clock, but we have to make some changes going forward. And Iron County it's a great place to live, a great place to be, a great place where people want to serve, where people want to keep it a great place and make it even better. And we don't need to start getting a reputation, like Cook County, Illinois, or something like that when it comes to elections. We've got to be able to completely trust it. I support 100% the 24-hour drop boxes, because that's exactly where mine would have went on that Sunday before 2 p.m. as before we started to load up boats. I appreciate what all of you do. I appreciate you, Clerk Whitaker, for doing everything that you can in this. And I understand, we have laws to keep order in society, and we can only do what we can do in the past, but we have to make some changes going forward, and integrity in our election system has to be at the very, very top of the list. There's nothing more sacred for people in this country. And so I do appreciate what you've done. I just want that to be on record, that I know when and where I put that in the box. Even drove to the post office with full faith that it would have that postmark. And thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Dixon Tiffany from Cedar City, Utah. I have very strong opinions about mail-in and mail-out voting. I'm completely against it. I've been voting for 52 years. Haven't missed one yet, whether I've been in or out of the country. And it seems to me that the systems that we're working under in these past few years are rife with interferences and malfeasance and all kinds of things that just shouldn't be allowed in a democratic Republican country. It's a shame. It's kind of a blight. I believe that we have to do whatever we have to do in order to make sure that a vote is counted, every vote, and it has to be certified. It has to be verified. Voter ID is as important as any piece of paper that you carry with you, ever, anytime. Without it, a country like ours doesn't stand. Without trust, without loyalty, I just don't see how the system that we use with the mail works well with what we have here. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. Maybe I'm just too old to comprehend the new way of thinking. But in my opinion, you show up, you show your ID, you make a ballot, you vote on the ballot, you put it in the ballot box, it gets counted. Now, if that takes more than one day, then let it be. But it's got to be done. There's too many things that have been coming up in the past decade or so that has messed up the elections in this country. And I think it's showing in the issues that are of the day. Because there are many issues that are much more prevalent and much more infected, I guess, than I've ever seen in my life. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lawana Brown Robinson on the voting. On Monday, the 23rd, I guess that would have been the 23rd, I went to the Paraguna Blue Box because the post office closes at noon. It was about 1 o'clock because I knew the pickup was at 2:50, and I dropped my ballot in there. I assumed that it would go to Parowan and be stamped in Parowan, and then, I wish they took them out at Parowan and took them to the clerk instead of sending them to Vegas, the ballots. And so I assumed it would be counted. Well, my daughter went online and found out that my vote wasn't counted. So I just wish they'd do the 24-hour or somehow stop it in Parowan or wherever, the local, and take the ballots out rather than send them to Vegas or do something, like that.
That's one of those ideas I talked about with the state election director last night. Is he had done something like that when he was in Weber County in Ogden. He was going to. I didn't have time to work it through with him last night, but that's one of the things we're going to see about with the postal service is if we can at least keep the election mail local.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let us have it, Chanel.
Chanel Bass, Chief Deputy Clerk, Iron County. So I can speak, well, I haven't done the mail. We take the mail for the county for all of the county offices to the Parowan Post Office every day at 2 o'clock. I haven't done it for the last couple of years, but I do know that, well, it's now picked up at 3 o'clock in Parowan. You know, they come from Cedar to pick up the mail in Parowan at 3 o'clock, and then they go to Paraguna. So they don't go from Cedar to Parowan to Paraguna back to Parowan. So, I mean, I know you have to know your times. It does say on the blue mailboxes what time the mail is going to be picked up daily. I don't know, if people know that, but it does say what time the mail will be picked up out of the mailboxes on the mailboxes. So just make note. So if you're dropping it off on the 24th, if it's saying it's being picked up at 12:15 and you put it in at 12:16, dang it. So just make note of that. So, which I didn't really realize that until just recent years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chanel.
Any other comment? Any discussion up front?
I've got stuff to say, but if you want to go first.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. All right. John, when did we talk? Was it Thursday or Friday? I can't remember.
It was Friday night. We
Yeah,
had that other issue to talk about.
Yeah, I called John about another issue, and that's when he kind of told me about what was going on with these ballots. And I, of course, I think you remember, John, I probably let a few words slip in our discussion.
I can't remember.
Thank you.
As long as you don't remember mine.
I am related to Jay Golden Kimball, so it's my excuse. But so when he told me that there was 429 ballots returned late with the 25th postmark and that 14 had the hand stamp, I was alarmed. And then very concerned. The next day Saturday, I went to get my hair cut, and I was in the barber's chair, and you learn a lot in the barber's chair. But I was talking to him, and we got talking about the election, and he said, well, it's unfortunate that my ballots didn't count, my wife's and my ballot. And I said, what happened? He said, well, my wife and I filled our ballots out on Thursday night, and she works across the street at State Bank of Southern Utah. And on the 24th at noon, during her lunch break, she walked across the street on 100 West and deposited their ballots in the blue box there. And then they got the letter from the county saying they didn't count. I thought, man, I wonder how prevalent this is. So I put out a Facebook post yesterday. I said, how many out there that sees this has had a problem? Camille Toppin that spoke, and she messaged me privately. I did go out to her home yesterday afternoon with a affidavit that she signed, her and her husband and daughter, and I've got those notarized, and I can enter them in the record. So that was Richard and Kelsey, and then Tyrell Taysom, who lives over in Cross Hollow. He messaged me and said that he dropped his in his mailbox in his front yard on the 22nd, and I have an affidavit from him. He said he was really disappointed because last year this same thing happened to him. He was disqualified last year as well. But I think he mailed last year's on the 24th, he said, so it was close. During this meeting, just before this meeting started, and I asked for permission to use his name, and he said it was okay, but Chuck Taylor, I think a lot of you guys know Chuck Taylor that worked at Metalcraft, he said that he went and turned his ballot in the afternoon of the 24th, before 5 o'clock. He turned in 4 ballots for him and his wife and 2 of his somebody. Anyway, turned in 4 ballots, and they were all disqualified. And I ran a business for 33 years and sold it to my son 7 years ago. And I've always been under the impression if you take, because I texted him, I said, was it outside or inside? He said it was inside. And I've always been under the impression if you take a piece of mail in the mailbox inside before 5 o'clock, it's postmarked for that time. And so that was alarming. I was reading an article, I think it was KSL, and there was a quote in there that they quoted. It was a post that our Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson made on X, and I want to quote that. It says, "A canvass is a public meeting conducted by election officials and county commissioners to review and verify the results of an election." And then it says, Henderson wrote in the post, and it goes on with her quote, "Discrepancies are thoroughly evaluated and resolved to ensure all valid votes are accurately reflected. The overall purpose of a canvass is to ensure the accuracy and integrity of each election." And that made me think pretty hard about this whole process. I've been in touch with some of our representatives. I've been in touch over the weekend with Speaker of the House Mike Schultz. He was meeting with some attorneys in the state. He spoke with Deidre Henderson. They thought there might be some wiggle room that they could allow the clerks to make the ultimate decision. I think that we could, one of the challenges I have is 2 years ago, I don't remember how many ballots, but I think about half of our ballots came up missing. My wife and I and our kids never got a ballot. I think it was 20,000, sound right, John? About 20,000 ballots missing in that. I can't remember.
I don't remember the number. Sorry.
Anyway, there was a lot. And so those were missing. So half of the people didn't get a ballot last election. And I was alarmed with that. I brought it up in the legislature, in the state UAC meetings. Nothing happened. No changes. Nothing happened. So as I heard some of the comments today, I thought about Dixon Tiffany. I think he said he's voted for 50 years, whatever it was, every year, whether he's in the country or out. I think that the lieutenant governor could postpone this canvass. I believe that she has to canvass this election on the 22nd. I think it could be delayed until we were able to contact all 415 or whatever was left. 415 voters in Iron County. Call them, notify them. And I'm not so naive to know that some people may not tell us the truth, that some may remember differently. But when you hear stories like Mrs. Toppin's, it's pretty compelling. I think that's pretty, it's pretty compelling that you did this and deposit then. And so I think we can also look at voting history as a barometer of, when you see somebody that's voted every single year and they take it very seriously, and then all of a sudden their ballot didn't count. I think that could be taken into effect as well. I just fear that if we don't make a stand, I've been involved in city council and county commission for a while. I think this would be number 7 or 8 times that I've been in a board of canvassing and canvass an election. But I do believe that under these circumstances, I don't know how we can, in good conscience do this. Let's see. I think that's all I'm going to say. I've got another statement I'm gonna read at the end before we vote, but I'll let you guys go ahead and talk for a minute.
Go ahead.
I just think this is a heartbreaking situation. We want our community to vote. We want them to exercise their stewardship and their right to vote. And yesterday when Paul sent me copies of the emails, I was very, very much in tune with what he was saying, and I appreciated that. Later, Chad sent out the specifics of the state law, And the state law is very clear that it has to be postmarked prior to election day. And I'm not sure how we get around that. If there's a way we can get around that, then I'm all for that. But I don't know that, I guess part of my question is what's the greater travesty, that we lose out on the 400 plus votes, or we lose out on the 9,384 votes? And I guess maybe part of this is my ignorance, and I'd ask you, John, is if this election isn't certified today, then what happens? What's the process?
Yeah, the code doesn't go into a lot of detail on that. The only thing it really says is what I read earlier. The Board of Canvassers shall, once having begun the canvass, continue until it is completed. If it's failed to be certified, typically when there have been elections that were failed to be certified, it's because of, obvious fraud or damage to ballots or interference. This is a terrible situation, but it's none of those things. And honestly, I don't know, Chad. I wouldn't know how that goes. I know there've been examples in Arizona where the Board of Canvassers was compelled, but I don't know how that would play out.
I think that's the likely outcome, is that the Attorney General's office sues to enforce and compel the Board of Canvassers to follow the statute and certify the election.
So I guess that's.
But I guess part of my question, Chad, and I don't know if you know better, but do we have some wiggle room? Is there an opportunity of appealing this to the lieutenant colonels, or the lieutenant colonel?
Ken may or may not have been in the military before this job.
To the lieutenant governor's office and see if the affidavits are acceptable in light of the failure of the federal government once again.
The way I read the statute, it's very clear. There doesn't seem to be a lot of daylight or wiggle room. It says, to be valid, a ballot that is mailed must be clearly postmarked before Election Day, or otherwise clearly marked by the post office as received by the post office before Election Day. Sometimes there's ambiguity in a statute, and you can look to see if there's case law to that effect. You look to the plain meaning of the statute, and here it's clear to me. I don't see ambiguity.
And that's where I really struggle, is because my heart goes out to the 400 plus voters that I think did get their ballots in on time.
I agree. I believe Ms. Topham. I believe Ms. Robinson. Ms. Williamson. Is it Ms. Williamson or what? Matthews. I think that they're being truthful and credible, and it's heartbreaking that.
And that, but I'm not sure how we get around the law. But I agree with the comments that were made that this absolutely has to be fixed. This is, we're allowing the post office to make a mockery of our vote. That just isn't right. And but how do we fix that? And by not certifying the vote, does it do anything to fix it? If we collect the affidavits separately and give them to our legislators and senators, does that?
That's where I see the value of an affidavit, is to show the scope and the scale and say how prevalent this issue was. And I think that could hopefully get the ball rolling, and so we could make some changes to correct this for future elections.
But I just, and it's what I say is, my fear is that if we decertify it, then we lose out on the other 9,384 people whose votes did count.
I'm not sure that's true, is it?
Well, and you all know this, my legal opinion is that we certify the election. I still think that we can use some of the circumstances here to try to effectuate change and prevent this type of thing happening in the future. I think that my legal opinion is that this should be certified.
Well, as I've pondered this and looked at it, along with Sheriff Carpenter, my background's in law enforcement. I've had the opportunity to be sworn in to uphold the Constitution as well as local laws several times over the course of my career. State law is very clear on this. Not that that rectifies this situation, but the majority of my career in law enforcement has been as an investigator, as a detective. I've worked handling lots of stuff, whether it be frauds. My specialty's always been child abuse, sex abuse, and dead bodies. That's the realm that I'm comfortable in. And in those cases, there's not a quick fix. Something that when you gather evidence, you gather affidavits, you gather information, many times it's a process in order to put a case together. It's not something that can be done overnight. I feel like we have a great case moving forward because the fix to this is with the legislature. The fix to this isn't at the county commission level. The fix to this isn't at the lieutenant governor's office. The ultimate fix to this is at the legislature. We're not going to we're not going to change this today. I don't know any way around honoring the law as it stands today, respecting the law and following the law. It's very clear. Now, with that being said, moving forward, there's a lot that we can do. Stephanie's research and that type of thing moving forward can be nothing but very compelling as we move forward to make a change widespread. We've been successful in making changes at the legislature, whether it's on the criminal side with victims. I've been involved in those things for many years. Whether it's changing tax code to benefit the citizens of Iron County, those are things that we've all been successful at. And I can't see that this would fall through the cracks again. Interestingly enough, in a conversation with John about is this a widespread thing or did this happen in Washington County? Washington County said, yeah, we dealt with it last year. We had the same problem. We worked things out with the post office. I think that it's bigger than that. I think that we need to work things out with the legislature, not just the post office, to bring back the integrity of our election. But me personally, I've taken an oath to follow the law. The law is very clear. We've talked with our county attorney, who's an expert in the law, and I don't see a way to move forward without approving the canvass of the election, but with the caveat of, man, let's do something about it. Let's move forward through the proper channels and do something about it. Any other? Commissioner Cousins has a statement, and then we'll call for a vote.
Is that written, Commissioner?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I don't want to have to read it.
I can send it to you.
Okay.
No, you don't have to read it. I just thought of this. We don't watch R-rated movies in our home very often, but there's a couple that I do show my kids. I edit some parts. One is Saving Private Ryan, and the other is Patriot. I wanted my girls, they're adopted from China, and if we had not adopted them and brought them to America, they'd have a lot different life. They'd live under communism. And as we go through the festivities and the parade and all these things, I wanted them to understand what the sacrifices were made of our founding fathers. And so I said, girls, this is pretty graphic and it's pretty tear-jerking at times, but I want to show you this movie. And we finished it last night late, way later than I should have stayed up. But those founders broke the law. They dumped tea in the harbor. And So I'm going to read this. As an elected official, I believe there is no duty more sacred than ensuring the security and integrity of our elections. I cannot, in good conscience, vote to certify an election when hundreds of ballots were marked late by the Postal Service. The Utah Election Code states, if it clearly appears to the election officer and board of canvassers that certain matters are omitted or that clerical mistakes exist in election returns received, the election officer shall correct the omissions and mistakes. Legitimately registered voters acting in good faith with the clear intent to submit their ballots on time have substantially complied with our voting laws. These voters are willing to sign a sworn, notarized affidavit, and many already have, attesting that they did comply with election law. So when we talk about laws, there's two laws that we're looking at here. The right to vote has been paid for by the blood of hundreds of thousands who have come before us. Silencing these voices dishonors their sacrifices and undermines the democratic process. Therefore, I will not vote to certify this election until we have a clear path forward without silencing the voices of those who did their duty and mailed their ballots on time. So that's my position.
I would call for a motion in agenda item number 13, canvass of the June 25th, 2024 primary election. Go to the sheriff.
May I ask another question for a minute?
Absolutely.
Is it possible to put this process on hold until we have the opportunity of speaking with the Lieutenant Governor's office and the Attorney General's office and see if there's any way forward?
John, I believe we have it till tomorrow, right? We have
Yeah, so we could call, at this point, it's going to have to be a special meeting or an emergency meeting. And then we have until tomorrow at 5 p.m. The law is, I switched away from it, but it's 7 to 14 days after the election. So today's day number 13. So there is a window to answer your question.
Well, I'd make a motion that we put this process on hold until we have the opportunity of talking with the state representatives and see if there is a path forward to count these 400 votes before we make the decision of certification.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So what do we need to do?
I will make the arrangements. Yeah. Maybe the best way.
We'll need to notice it by.
You got to do within 24 hours.
5 p.m.
Emergency, you can do. Yeah. So I'll have time to maybe. Can you do 4 p.m. tomorrow? Say again.
I'll just say, I mean, unless in that time we can contact these voters, it's 415 voters, and get answers from the U.S. Postal Service on what happened, my vote will still be no.
Okay. I can't fix that. I don't know.
Right.
Do you want me to move forward with?
It seemed like in my discussions with Speaker Schultz and his discussions with the Lieutenant Governor, not to speak for him, but he felt like the text he sent me this morning, he wanted to get on a phone call, but I had to come into the 9 o'clock meeting, but he felt like there was some wiggle room for the clerks he said it was maybe stretching it, but there might be some wiggle room for clerks to make those decisions.
And I can say I've relayed those conversations to the Lieutenant Governor's office, and they basically said you're on the right side of the law by not counting them. Yeah, that's.
I guess my concern would be Speaker Schultz have the authority to make that legal decision. That's not something that's the purview of the Speaker of the House.
I don't think he does
at this point.
But he, in conversation with the Lieutenant Governor, stated that. So that could be clarified, I suppose, John, between now and tomorrow.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, let's do that.
All right. 4 p.m. is a time that works for y'all? All y'all? Or I can do any time from when we're done with this meeting onward. Otherwise, I have to call it an emergency meeting.
Got a Sheriff's Association meeting tomorrow that I have to go to. I could be back by 4 o'clock.
4 p.m. works for you?
So I could be back by 4, but
I'm good at 4.
I can do 4.
Okay, 4 p.m. it is. Maybe the best thing that I can do is include all 3 commissioners and Sheriff Carpenter and our legal folks on the conversation with the Lieutenant Governor's office. And we'd probably need to enter those emails into the record.
Would the Board of Commissioners be these same 3, or would it be Commissioner Wood would probably be available tomorrow?
I don't know. What do you think,
How does
Chad?
that work?
I mean, if she is available.
She's traveling today. That's why she couldn't.
Right. She's getting on a plane, right?
Yep. So I think she'll be available tomorrow because she'll be at her destination. So
I think that's probably.
Do you have a strong feeling about that, Sheriff?
whatever the law requires. I mean,
it says if one or more are not present or unavailable, then we kind of dip into the other offices. So if Commissioner Wood is available.
And the only other thing I'm worried about is, it says the Board of Canvassers shall, once having begun the canvass, continuance until it's completed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
that was my
I'm gonna leave
question.
that I daresn't interpret that. I think.
Yeah, I think then with that language we continue on with the board as constituted, with including Sheriff Carpenter.
Okay. Okay. 4 p.m. tomorrow.
We going electronic, or are we going to meet here?
We better meet in person.
Okay.
Yeah. And it does actually say at the normal place of, at the usual place of meeting of the county legislative body.
All right. Move on to agenda item number 14, personnel.
Thank you. The items on the agenda today will probably need to be discussed and approved, each item instead of all together.
One at a time?
Yes. I should have said that a little bit clearer, so I apologize.
That's fine.
In the attorney's office, with the vacancy of a deputy attorney since March of this year, the criminal caseload has been distributed between the existing attorneys, and as great as they are to pitch in and cover, it is a little bit overwhelming with the amount of caseload that they are covering. The request has been made to use some of the budget that has not been spent for that vacant deputy attorney position, and to hire a temporary part-time law clerk. And I've included that job description in the commission packet so you guys could look at that. It is a pretty standard position that a lot of counties do use, and we've kind of helped, they've helped in letting us kind of borrow from them. So our request is to have that job description approved and to allow Dallin Brooks to fill in the part-time law clerk position, temporary law clerk position, effective date 8/5 of 2024.
It's going to be a temporary position. Dallin, he's interned with us the last 2 summers while he's been in law school. He's now done with law school, sitting for the bar this month. But he's only going to be with us until end of December, at which point he's going to go into the military as a JAG attorney, where we're hoping that he can kind of help absorb some of the jobs and things for us and put him to work.
I'll move to approve personnel item A as is described.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Charles Day and Skylar Davis have completed all tasks to be promoted from a full-time deputy clerk or deputy 2 to a full-time deputy 3 position beginning July 8th, 2024 for Charles Day and August 4th, 2024 for Skylar Davis.
I'll move to approve item B as described.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. And the last item on the agenda, I'll turn the time over to our clerk, John Whitaker, to discuss the request of his department. I will also be available for any questions or follow-up.
I would just request that we table this for now. We've had some discussion, and I didn't get, with all the other stuff going on, I didn't get a chance to reach
Totally
out to you.
fine.
I'm sorry, but I'm not going to give up on this, but it didn't feel like now was the right time, and I might retool just a little bit. So
Okay, sure.
maybe a little bit closer to budget season.
So we will table agenda item 14C.
Thank you.
Sam, did you say that we had need for closed session today? Which, do we know, is this the correct code on here?
Oh,
or-
no, I'm so sorry. Hang on. Never did get. Hey, Sam, will you take that on to make the cheat sheet for the commissioners? Okay. In the meantime, I'll get it.
There's those.
Are you able to read that, Paul?
You want me to walk down there and just do it? Yeah, from down there?
Sure, sure.
How's that?
All right, it is going to be closed session 5024205 sub C, strategy session to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation.
I would move into.
Yeah, slide it back. You have to kind of be tough with it.
Good for the 2 o'clock with council meeting.
Could be.
Just add that.
Compare one.
Yeah, and then the one on Thursday is in Cedar.
Yeah. Yeah, that should be. Short answer is yes. Okay. I don't reach out. We won't. just air.
Sorry, my computer went. Let me wake it up. Okay, go ahead.
All right, we back on. All right, welcome back to County Commission. We have just come out of closed session.
Oh, nice.
Freaking out.
Well, that's a good sign. I think our stream's working.
That's our stream's working. No, Chair declares that closed commission closed. There are no other items on today's agenda, so we will declare this meeting closed.
Adjournment.
Adjourned.